I would like to, last year I had some pictures showing the history of XMLPrague. Now, I hope I will give you some ideas of what we can do with XML. So my talk is titled XML Authoring as a Service, and I was thinking about XAAAS, but yeah, it's too long. And last night I was with Young, and he said at the table, he said you should use XAS, as a term. Maybe, I don't know, this will catch up. I don't know. We'll see. But I think we use a lot of services for different things these days. For storage, for versioning, we may use, for instance, GitHub. For publishing, for running scripts to integrate different things, we can use continuous integration servers. To communicate, we use also services like Slack, for instance, for project communication and so on. So what if we add XML authoring as one of these services? Because these services are, I think I'm too loud. Okay. These services are actually connected to realize different solutions or workflows. But I don't like to speak, to follow all the slides. So I will switch to something to show you exactly what I mean. So this is the XProc.org website, which is actually maintained by Norm. And of course, Norm will maintain this in Dogbook, most likely, rather than in other formats. So basically, you see the source of this page is on GitHub. It's this index.xml, which is a Dogbook file. It was an workshop just before XMLPrague. It may be nice to have some information available on this page, right? To mention, I don't know, something like latest events or something like that. So what do you do to provide, to make that change? Right. So you have to, I don't know, maybe fork the project, clone that, find the topic, edit that, commit, push, send a pull request, and maybe Norm will accept it. But it's quite a long way. So if we will have a service and then just point to a URL that represents this document to interact with that document, maybe things will be easier, right? So what happens is that there is an edit page, an edit link here, and if I push this, basically an XML authoring service is invoked with exactly that source document. So now let's say I want to add a new section. So let's say we add something like on February 7, 8, there was a workshop in Prague just before XML Prague, and I save this. Now, of course, I do not have access, commit rights to norm repository, so I'm asked to send a pull request if I want to send a pull request. I accept that, and norm should have a pull request with my change. Right, so basically now if norm will accept my pull request, or he may comment that I need to put a link maybe for XML Prague, and then I can come back and mark that up as XML Prague with the link to the conference website and so on. And then he will accept the change maybe, or maybe he can accept it right away and we will see it available on the XProCore website. I don't know. But the idea is having XML authoring as a service allows this experience where rather than using, something like this is the usual GitHub workflow that I mentioned earlier with so many steps, with the fork, clone, check out the working copy, the specific branch that you want, edit, find and edit the file, commit, push, and send a pull request. So all that can be replaced with something as easy as click to edit, change, save to send a pull request. So to get an idea what's going on, usually you have, in this case, we have, for instance, GitHub. GitHub Pages is usually used for publishing, and Travis, you can build from the XML source and push the generated content, let's say, on a branch that is visible through GitHub Pages, which is the publishing service. And Oxygen XML Web Author is used as an XML authoring service. So this is another example that I have in this diagram with the Data Open Toolkit documentation. So in this case, we had a dogbook. Here we have the Data Open Toolkit documentation, and basically if you browse the documentation and you go to a specific, to any topic, here you also have edit this page link, which brings that content into the authoring service, and you can interact with that. Here you can see, for instance, something about the editing context. In this case, for data, you have also the map as the context for editing. I have also a project on GitHub called GitHub Data-Wiki, GHD-Wiki, which basically tries to, so it does automatic publishing, provides a history link, for instance, so that will go to GitHub, so you can see all the commits, so you can also see the changes made to a file, and also on edit, which brings, again, that topic into the authoring service. Here, the idea is that the user interface this is lightweight data, and for the user interface you have, a customized user experience, a customized authoring experience with actions and so on. To edit a link, for instance, you can just edit that in line, just pressing an edit button next to that. So rather than going to access attributes on a side view, you can edit them directly in the user interface. I just want to share two other use cases that we find useful. I've been to a number of conferences where they were talking about how can we enable a feedback from our support team to the documentation team, because in many cases they are disconnected. Let's say someone writes on your support channel and reports an issue. The support team may look into the documentation to find if there's an answer to that problem. And at that moment, they can see if what they found actually responds to the specific question, to a real question, or not. They may find that the documentation has some bugs, maybe something is not correct, or something is missing. In order to send that feedback to the documentation team, what can they do? Write an email, maybe open an issue, and sometimes that will be fixed. So what we try to do for our own documentation is that, let's say can you give me a search term? I don't know, something that you do with Oxygen, schematron, or what do you do? JSON, I don't know. So editing JSON documents, for instance, right? So let's say if I go to this topic and I see that there is a problem that I want to correct here, as a support engineer, rather than opening an issue or doing all kinds of things, I can just edit the topic. And as you've seen in the case with the XPro.org, I can provide a suggestion for the documentation team, basically. So they can then, accept that or reword what I suggested, but they still get that immediately. And it's a direct link from the support team to the documentation team. And the last use case that I wanted to share is that we are a software company, and let's say a developer will work to fix an issue, to create a new functionality in Oxygen. When that is documented by the documentation team, we want exactly that developer to review that documentation, because from a technical point of view, because he knew exactly what he implemented. So how do you bridge, how do you link them? Our developers use Jira for issue tracking. So what we've done is that when the technical team will change something on the documentation that's related to a specific issue, automatically we will inject in Jira a message that allows them just to click to open that file. Here you have, such an example that allows the developer that has that issue assigned to have a link directly in that issue, and he can just click on that link to see the changes made to the documentation. So the power of, let's say, web-based XML authoring is not in the fact that I have something in the browser and I go and open from there, right? Go browse and find my files like I will do it in a desktop editor. The power of XML authoring stays in this seamless integration into a workflow. And I think we need to see this as not as a browser-based editor, but as a service, as an XML authoring service. So my takeaways will be, maybe we can start using this term XaaS, XML authoring as a service. And I think it is possible now to have different systems that we thought about at some point, like a structured blogging system or based on dogbook or based on data or something like that. It's possible. It's very easy for people to interact with XML content. Just click, make changes, save. Behind that, you can hide the complexity of accessing the file, committing, or whatever can be hidden from the user. And with a customized authoring experience, as in the case with lightweight data, the interaction with the user does not need to know about the underlying XML structure. And I was trying to push also the guys from Delta XML to create a diff service. I asked them a few times, because that will be also useful to have an XML diff as a service, to have a number of XML publishing processors, let's say, available as a service as well. So then we can very easily link them to create a custom or a specific solution. Let me see if we have anything here.
Travis is having some issues, so it's not succeeding in the build. If you go to the repo, you can see this in there, but Travis is confused.
So at some point, probably we'll have the Xpro code updated with my suggestion. I was thinking also along the lines having Saxon.js maybe together with a raw XML document, so you don't need Travis basically or anything to publish that. So thank you, and I hope I gave you some ideas of what you can do. Thank you.
We have time for one or two questions. Waiting for John Lumley to set up his computer for the next talk. So, any questions targeted to George? Yes. Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing very well.
Probably don't need a microphone, but perhaps the recording would prefer I had it. Yeah. George, thank you very much. It's kind of cool stuff. I want to poke two questions. Remind me, Oxygen web authoring does permit me to show angle brackets, right? Because I don't know how to edit without angle brackets.
You can display tags.
Oh, good.
And it has also source editing mode.
And then I wanted to poke at you a little bit about the name of this product. At the moment, you don't have the capability to allow multiple users to edit the same document simultaneously. So either you are withholding the obvious name, Oxydoc, for that service, or you're going to name this Oxydoc.
So we do not have concurrent editing on the same document. We have some ideas of how we can implement that, or some degree of concurrent editing. But depending on the repository, you can have automatic locking So when you when one user is accessing a file, that will be read-only for the others. And that kind of solves, let's say, this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, George. So I proposed the name on Twitter of Xasonica, very difficult to pronounce, but maybe it gives an idea to